Hello and welcome to another episode of the Menswear Style Podcast. I'm your host Pete Brooker, and today I'm talking to Sam Carew, one of the co-founders for Elliott Footwear. Elliott Footwear were founded in Copenhagen, and they are a brand with a minimalist approach to style and impact on the planet. They were born out of a desperate need to act and created with a heart for environmental change. Following extensive research and implementation, they launched the world's first climate-positive sneaker collection in September 2018. And we're going to get into that now. What is climate positive? Here is Sam Carew to talk about the brand Elliott Footwear in his own words.
I'm Sam. Elliott Footwear is the world's first climate-positive sneaker brand. So in essence, we're the first people to tie climate action to, I guess, a footwear brand. So we sell sustainable footwear to anybody that will buy, and then we offset 1 metric ton of CO2 emissions for every pair of shoes that we sell, which sounds complicated, but what we do is that we partner with climate partners to be able to allow us to make that claim. And it's a really interesting space we're in now, right? Because we have, we're trying to grow a brand, but also have a very cognizant eye on climate change and how it's going to affect, the world, but definitely the footwear industry.
Sam, tell me about what is climate positive. Maybe you can just start there.
Yeah, okay, good sight. Climate positive is a term we've latched onto. Some people use carbon negative, and we prefer to err on the side of positive.
Yeah, you're a climate glass half full.
Yeah, exactly. So, in essence, what we do is that there's a climate cost to everything you create, and we did some analysis right at the genesis of Elliott to work out what the carbon cost of creating a pair of shoes is. And in our particular scenario, it was just under 200 kilograms. I wonder if there's, speaking to other footwear partners and other brands in the past, we found that maybe the analysis was quite high. But I wonder if that's because we typically run with small runs of shoes rather than creating thousands of pairs. So our first run was 1,200 pairs.
Right.
So maybe the calculation is slightly higher because of the number of shoes we're creating. And the carbon cost of a pair of Elliott's, like we worked out to be just under 200 grams, and then we offset 1 metric ton, which is over 5 times the amount of the carbon cost of creating a pair of shoes. That's why we use the term carbon positive. So in essence, we are making a positive impact on the footwear industry, really. So we have a scenario where other brands, so for example, other brands can have a range of between 7 and maybe like 18 kilograms for the carbon cost of their creating of their shoes. And then they trying to be carbon neutral by offsetting that same amount.
How are you?
We typically...
Sam, sorry to interrupt. I'm just wondering, how are you offsetting something if you're making something? Can you just tell me about the ingredients going into the equation?
Okay, so we use three different products in our shoes, 4 different products. So a recycled, 70% recycled rubber for the soles on all our shoes. We tried looking at 100% recycled rubber, and we found that the product wouldn't last as long as we would hope it to. So we from analysis, we look at owning a pair of shoes for a minimum of 2 years if you're wearing it every day, which people typically don't tend to do that. No, but lots of times people have more than 1 pair of shoes, so they don't have to wear one specific shoe for that length of time. So if you wear a pair of shoes, a pair of Elliott's for every day, it should last you a couple of years. But if we had used a fully 100% recycled rubber, then we wouldn't have been able to take a claim like that, because it would have been quite brittle. So, and then we use a recycled canvas for two of our styles, the canvas low and the canvas high top. Both use recycled canvas, and then we use a vegan leather, which in itself is a contradiction in itself, and a vegan suede, to create two other styles. Both those are polymers, which we're cognizant of in the desire to use less plastics going forward. So as an organization, we made the decision to start here. And then the idea is that future generations of our shoes, hopefully the next generation, or at least the next generation after that, will be plastic free.
Nice. Okay. So you've been going for years. Maybe we can just dial back to the start. How did you raise the capital, and what were you kind of doing before this that influenced your decision to start the brand?
So two original founders that we have is a gentleman called Mikkel and another guy called Lars, who went to school together. Both of them from Denmark, both living in Copenhagen at the time. Like most good founder stories, they were having a beer, having a catch up, and I think Lars had been going through a bit of climate anxiety. It's I guess a term that's coming up quite regularly now, where he just had his first child, thinking of what the future looks like, and with climate change, how would we have a future for her to look? Would he have a future for her to look forward to? Mikkel is a creative, and I guess just two and two together, clothing brand seemed really, really difficult. And it's only when you're in the footwear brand that you realize it's not that difficult.
Right.
So clothing seemed really difficult. Tying footwear to, Lars's climate anxiety kind of, came up with the idea of that is Elliott. And then they reached out to me to say, how can we help grow it? We desire to be, to be a big brand, a brand that people recognize. And they reached out to me to ask if I can help do that.
And what were your skills? I mean, why in particular do you think they reached out to you, sir?
Good question. Ironically, I have zero knowledge of footwear. I've never worked in the footwear industry, but I guess my strength is, and I'm a good connector. I guess I like to talk to people. I love people in general, and I'm able just to kind of connect people together. It felt like it's I was going through some stuff myself. I'd been working in a large consultancy. They were 35 people when I first started, and they grew to about 600 people while I was there, looking after their IT department. And I went in to see my boss to say we needed new staff, and he informed me that they were actually going to get me a new boss. As you can imagine, I wasn't best pleased. And I guess it just felt like a time to make a move.
Okay.
To make a move. So coincided with the conversation with Lars. I left the firm. I had no job to go to. And so I literally just dived into Elliott, just decided to make it everything that I could do.
So this is the leap of faith for you. But I mean, been going 3 years. Do you think it's paid off?
Yeah, gosh, 100%. I'm still not working full time on Elliott. It's the desire to do so in the future. So I've still got a day job, but in terms of how it's going, it's amazing. The opportunities that I've been able to, and this is one of the things that I'm really passionate about. Nobody would have given me an opportunity to do something like this because I've never done anything like this before. And a lot of times people are, I guess, closed-minded to thinking as other people as whole entities rather than just something they do for a job. The idea that
no, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, it's quite easy to pigeonhole people, and we like to do it, don't we? We like to put people in their place because that's how we can process them,
understand them.
Yeah, it's like Sam. You mentioned that you're an IT guy. Great, you build websites or graphic design. I know where to put you in my Rolodex in my file cabinet in my mind. And then when something comes up as an idea for a footwear brand, I could perhaps just go to somewhere else. Yeah, you can't. It's more of a calorie burner for people to try and attach different things to you. They can't compute that someone might have different skills or areas of interest other than what it might say on their LinkedIn profile. So, where you come from.
That's exactly it. And for me now, this has been an opportunity to do something wildly different, to be able to grow in an area that I would never have had the opportunity to. Nobody would have given me a job, looking after the growth of a company, or nobody would have given me the opportunity to start a company, to be leading a company. But I'm doing it.
Doing it, man.
It's been just under 3 years.
Wow. Well, congrats, mate. I should just say for the people that aren't watching, because this isn't on YouTube, my light's just gone out. So Sam is now talking to one side of my face that's lit in the dark here. Sorry about that. But we'll crack on. Sam, talk to me a little bit about the design, if you will. So it's a very minimalistic, pulled back design, and people can find the designs on elliottfootwear.com, and we'll leave links over in the show notes. Elliott with 2 T's. Does the sustainability and the ingredients that go into making the trainers, do they kind of influence how the trainers have to look ultimately?
Yeah. In our specific instance right now, yes. We would, if we had decided to radically change the design of the shoe, then it would have probably influenced the cost of the development and how we would have got started. So, in order, like you asked earlier, raising the capital for Elliott started off with myself and one of the other co-founders, Lars, and we then were able to create, do the design process, create the shoes, create the brand, the aesthetics, shoot some videos, and then we launched it on Indiegogo in June of 2019. And I guess then it was out in the world, so out in the wild, as they say. So we then we were able to raise about $30,000 on Indiegogo, which paid for the first batch of shoes. And then now we're in the process of selling out those pairs of shoes and then designing what I call episode 2 of Elliott shoes. And that should be hopefully out April 2022.
Nice. And what do you put the campaign, the success of the campaign down to? So you raised, you say 30 grand?
Yeah. So that, I think we put it down to the minimalist design. It's sort of design that appeals to, I would say, most people. I think most people could wear a pair of Elliott's and be okay. It's a very simplistic style, very minimalist design. So, they would very much transition between smart wear and casual wear. And because they're unisex, they appeal to pretty much anyone who likes that sort of styling.
Was there any incentive for people to get in early on the campaigns?
Yeah, so when we had the first batch of shoes on the campaign selling at $89,
right?
And now they retail at 99, between 99 and 149. The retail prices are.
Okay,
But they typically, though, the reason why you have such high markups is we created a smaller run of shoes. So typically, some brands start off with between 5 and 10,000 pairs of shoes. We started off with 1,200, and so we have a small run of shoes. We have a limited. We had a 2-month period on Indiegogo to be able to raise that amount of capital.
Okay, and you did.
Be able to raise as much capital as you can in that 2-month period.
Where are the shoes made, Sam?
So between Spain and Vietnam,
mm-hmm.
We worked with an agent based in Vietnam, in Spain, who helped with the actual the technical development of the shoes, and then made in Vietnam as well.
And have you had a chance to go over to the factories and see them? How do you get your hands on the prototypes and see the process?
Yeah, so good question. We had, because as you can imagine, there's been some notoriety about the footwear industry in Asia. We actually sent one of our own photographers to the factory to just kind of be our eyes and ears. As a brand, we try to operate in a way that can use the least amount of carbon footprint as we can. So the idea of sending 3 of the founders on a plane to Vietnam didn't sit well.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2020, obviously March happened, and then no flying anyway.
Right. And the photographer. We had a photographer go out there,
take images of the factories, the process, how the shoes are created, the state of employees, state of the factory, how it treated its employees, and then report back to us. And we felt, obviously, we try and do your due diligence as much as you can when you're working with agents to find a reputable factory. But seeing as it was our first experience, we wanted to just double check that we were comfortable with who we were making the shoes with.
And are they okay with you going in and taking photos? Because I know, especially, you're in Northampton. We were just talking offline. Likes of, name your shoe company that comes out of Northampton. I'm sure everyone can name one. They won't let any tours go on. They won't let anybody in terms of taking photos and stuff like that, because obviously this is very private for them. They don't want to get imitated in any way or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So the factory over in Vietnam, they're okay with you guys coming in and taking photos?
Well, they were actually. And I guess it was one of our stipulations of working with them. Mm. As you can imagine, there are tons of manufacturers globally, and you get to decide who you want to work with. And it was one of our criteria to be able to be quite confident of who we're working with.
And are you going back to them for episode 2? I like the episode thing, by the way. People normally go for seasons, but I think episodes sounds like you've got more in the tank, as it were.
Yeah. So there is more in the tank. The desire for Elliott is to be a global brand, a globally recognized brand, a brand that people, if I'm honest, I give you my thinking of climate change and how it's going to be hopefully resolved. I think there's going to be a introduction of some sort of carbon tax on products. So and that would be able to fund offset projects like we do, and hopefully help move the needle towards a better temperature. And if that happens, then we may lose our unique selling point. So we still have to be able to create amazing looking shoes that stand the test of time, that goes beyond climate change. So it's very much in our desire to create shoes that are still more, you choose them because they're amazing, and it's an additional benefit that they're carbon positive.
How do you think you'll lose your unique selling point? Is that because more people will be looking to do what you guys do to avoid the carbon?
Maybe I just hope they will do what we do.
Yeah.
Because if they do, then we are able to make a change in that impact. Right? If more people do what we do, and I guess we welcome them to do the same, then there'll be a big, so for example, in 2018, Nike created, I think it was just over 300 million pairs of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were offsetting a ton of CO2 emissions for every pairs they sold, we would be in a very different place.
Wow. So what has to happen for a tax to be introduced? It would have to be a universal tax, right? With every country signing onto it, I'd imagine. Yeah,
in actual fact, possibly. And that's probably the bit that's really difficult to see, to envision that happening. There's only, I think COVID has only really been the one time where you've had unifying countries really working towards one goal. I don't think we've seen anything like it prior. And if climate change is something that, COP26 highlighted the desire, I guess, to make a real dent in this.
Yeah, it used to be, like, if you grew up watching films like me, the only thing that would unite countries would be like alien invasions, like Independence Day, and then you'd flash to the people, the government in China or the government over in the UK. It's like, well, what are we going to do to pull together to beat these guys? And that would be the only time you'd see them rally. But in lieu of a alien invasion, we have to have a virus that wipes out like 5 odd million. Interesting. So, but climate change is something that we can all look to. Well, a lot of countries, not all of them, have looked towards and said we need to do something about this. So let's all take a seat at the table. Well, Sam, I guess you have to now really have your head in trainers, right? I guess you know pretty much everything that goes on with the anatomy of trainers. I mean, was this also, like, in the last 3 years, has this been quite a learning curve for you in terms of this brand?
Yeah, completely. So I've got a lady working with me who's got a history of working with Uggs and Puma, and she's doing some stuff with Nike at the minute, and some other smaller independent brands, Flip-Flop. And she can tell you, like, you look at a trainer, you can, there's a sole, there's a tongue, but there's so many different parts of a trainer, and she's able to kind of dissect all those things. So it's been a massive learning curve for me, learning what all these parts are called for the start, what they, and I couldn't even still tell you all of them right now, but it's a massive learning curve. Just to, I went to a testing center recently showing how how shoes are tested, for durability, for temperature. So this particular company, Setsa Technology, they were the ones that created the first pair of shoes that went on the expedition to Everest. So, I can't imagine how many years ago that was, but you saw the break. They had the pair in the research office, and you had a cut through of the pair of the shoe, seeing the lining, um, how the shoe was constructed. It's technically brilliant.
Mm.
Technically brilliant. So there's a lot. It's been a massive learning curve for me, just getting my head around shoes, how they're created, the sampling process, the the way the way you test things before before the materials are made, before they're cut. It's a massive learning curve, but it's been really fun.
Yeah, the works of art, really, when you get to see how the fudge is packed, as it were, with shoes. Yeah. And also, I guess you're now, if you weren't before, just really noticing what people wear on their feet, right?
Oh, gosh.
So my girlfriend says, I had this conversation with her once. I said, what do you see in a dude first when you're like looking at a dude walking down the street? What is it that typically women see? And without missing a beat, she goes, trainers, shoes, whatever's on their feet. That's the first thing you clock, and then it's height. So like the two things that neither of which I'm doing for my girlfriend. But anyway, that's another day. But I would say like, oh, what do you think of my mate? We'd be having a party. She goes, well, he has shoes that he bought in the 80s and were last clean in the 90s. I didn't much like him, So she's very much focused on feet. So it's amazing how much it says about a person, isn't it? I always think that about shoes in particular. Are you now of that mind?
Yeah, I'm constantly looking at people's feet now. Maybe it's the desire to see a pair of Elliott's on someone I don't know.
Oh yeah, that'll be the day.
Yeah,
as in arriving, that'd be you've arrived in life if you just pass them.
Yeah. And so that, but constantly just really taken aback by people's shoes, and just like, because I guess it describes a little bit about them, right? Because it's a choice. What you decide to wear on your feet is a choice, and you typically have less shoes than you have clothes, so you have to probably choose your shoes more wisely. But yeah, I'm always looking at people's shoes now and what they're wearing.
Yeah,
it's a problem.
I often think, living in London, when I see people on the train, I look at their trainers or their shoes, and if I see a dude wearing white trainers in particular and they're immaculate, I often think this guy is taking care of himself in more ways than one. Like it's not just a fluke that he's just got really clean white trainers. He's looking after that. His house is probably tidy. His car is probably spotless. Do you know what I mean? Because that takes extra effort, especially living in the city, to keep white midsoles clean. And so I actually bought a pair of white trainers especially, and clean those pretty much religiously every time I get them back, because I want that to be this. I want that to be something that I communicate to other people, is that I do pay mind and I do look after myself. Yeah, because I think that's a good tell.
Yeah, maybe I think I need to. And funny enough, I've got I only wear Elliott's typically now, but I've got the navy blue pair that you can tell that they've been. It's easier to keep those clean than the
God, tell me about
a pair of white trainers.
Because I have also pigeon feet, so I can walk inwards. I try and sort it out when I'm walking, but when your mind wanders, my feet especially, clunk together. So the inside of the midsoles are the first thing to go. They get knackered. So keeping them clean is an extra added workout for me.
The funny thing is, you say that, and my grandma had toes that pointed inwards.
Yeah, so you kind of walk inwards.
It's quite an endearing trait to me in a weird way.
That's good. Well, if you see me walking down the street, then you'll be like, oh, I wonder if this guy...
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, this guy's all right by me. Yeah, let's go for a coffee. Well, Sam, listen, thanks so much for taking time out during the day as well, for jumping on the podcast and talking about Elliott Footwear. Again, the website, elliottfootwear.com, the place people can go and find... And by the way, very accessibly priced trainers. We're talking about, how you put in all the effort to make them sustainable and climate positive, etc., you'd think that would come with a more heftier price tag, but not the case, people. Where can people find you on the social media, Sam?
So yeah, we're typically on Instagram, like most other brands. Instagram, Facebook. That's typically where we roll.
The Elliott Footwear.
Elliott Footwear. All one word. 2 L's and 2 T's, like 2 feet.
Great. Go and check them out. And also we'll leave all the links on the show notes over at menswearstyle.co.uk. Sam, thanks so much for coming on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. Have a great day.
You too. You've been listening to the Menswear Style podcast. Be sure to head over to menswearstyle.co.uk for more menswear content and email info@menswearstyle.co.uk if you would like to be a future guest on the show. Finally, please help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Until next time.